All right, guys. So anybody else that comes in, we'll just get them as they start. Guys, so I want it to be very interactive. I want you guys to participate, and then after that, we'll have some questions afterwards, and I will answer, and then everybody else that comes in, we'll just go from there. So let me start off by just to make sure that everybody is in here and you can see me on the chat. If you could just type in NAR, N-A-R, NAR, type in NAR, so I know that you guys are here, engaged, participating, because you're going to have questions once we start diving into what exactly is going on. And therefore, that way you guys could get informed of all these changes happening. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I know you guys are busy. And so, yeah. So, guys, as you might have seen already, there is something called NAR. NAR is the National Association of Realtors. Now, for most consumers, you kind of don't ever hear about these people, but you might have heard of the term realtor, right? So when you work with a realtor, it sends a agent, a real estate agent or broker that has paid dues and fees to be able to be under this umbrella, the National Association of Realtors, which is what gives you the name realtor. Now, what happened here earlier in a nutshell is that a lot of sellers got together and said, hey, we feel that the commission that we have paid to agents through this whole time of real estate was not what we intended. I think we lost money. Therefore, we're all going to come together and we are going to sue the National Association of Realtors. And what happened is that once this came to be part, and it was quite the legal process, basically the National Association of Realtors settled, and now changes on the way commissions are structured, commissions are negotiated, commissions are disclosed, are going to take place as of August 17th. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, JP, that sounds cool. That sounds great. What does that have to do with me as a consumer, as a buyer, as an agent, as a seller, as an investor? Well, this is where it gets very creative, guys, because believe it or not, there are going to be changes that is going to affect you. And see, the way commissions used to work is that the seller would meet up with an agent, you would interview the agent, and you would make a decision based on the value he provided, on how well he did, his credibility, on what you are willing to pay. By the way, commissions have always been 100% negotiable. And the average of that commission normally was between 5 to 6%. Now, in return, that agent, the listing agent, says, hey, I'm willing to share a portion of my commission with the buyer's agent. So if you are a buyer looking to purchase a property, you will have a buyer representation. This is a buyer's agent, a buyer realtor who will represent you, will fight for you, negotiate for you, get you the best deal. And at the end of all that, the seller, with the commission he paid the listing agent at closing, a percentage of that, which normally is 2.5%, goes to the buyer side. So no fee came from the buyer, no fee came from the investor, no fee came from the lender. Everything got paid by the seller. And this is where kind of things got interesting, because sellers are saying, hey, well, I'm willing to pay for the service that I got, which is the listing agent. Why shouldn't the buyer pay for his own service? Why do I have to also pay for that? I don't want that. So I want to be able to negotiate. So this is where things get interesting. And by the way, if you have bought a property, there is such a thing called as a buyer's agreement. It was just almost never used by real estate agents, because if Ivan or Ray wanted to buy a property from me, we would just have a mutual agreement. Hey, I'm going to help you buy this property. I show you properties. There's that mutual agreement. I would look at properties on the MLS, which is the search engine that we realtors look for properties. It would stay the commission we're being paid. So therefore, we're executing on that, negotiating for you, getting you the right deal. And in the end, we get compensated by the seller. There was never nothing that we had to really be concerned, aside of the times that sometimes buyers will tend to go somewhere else, meaning you showed a buyer a property, then he said, hey, I'm gonna go directly to the seller and go directly to the seller and sometimes work out a deal like that. And that happened many times. This is why a buyer's agreement was always important. But now things are really going to change. So starting August 17th, there will be two very important forms added to every real estate transaction. That is the BRBC, required for all buyers, and the form BCA. And also, more than anything, a consultation required to explain the process. This is crucial because now the agents, the buyer's agents, so if I'm working with you, Ivan, I have to sit down with you and actually consult with you and explain what these forms are because, and when we get to them, you'll see why, there's a commitment that you will compensate me if for some reason you feel that my value was there and you got the property and the seller says, hey, I'm not going to pay nothing. Guess what? The buyer now has to pay that commission. So the way it's going to work now is that if I'm going to sell Ray a property, I have to meet with Ray. We're going to discuss this compensation agreement, this buyer representation agreement. I cannot show Ray any properties until there's a buyer representation signed. And this is the caveat to all this. If it's not signed, the listing agent has the right to not let you show that property. In fact, you cannot go in to see that property if you do not have one signed. And this is where it's going to get very interesting because as you guys know, with buyers, it's quite the process to be able to purchase a home, right? We got to get pre-approved. We still want to make sure we touch things. We want to make sure, is this the right timing? Is this agent going to be the right fit? Let me test them out. Let me go check out these properties. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, guys, guess what? You would just leave. But now you have to make a commitment because on the new form, it states the amount of time that you are tied with that agent. Now, we could look at this at both ways, right? We could look at it as a good thing or as a bad thing. Now, I've been an agent for almost 20 years now, and I maybe have signed 5 buyer agreements in my whole time dealing in real estate. And I'm going to tell you right now that the 5 times that I did was with people that I just felt that they were just going to use me. So it was kind of a very difficult process to get them to sign it, even though I was providing maximum value, right? However, I ended up closing and then still the seller paid that commission. Now, where it's going to get interesting now is that as a consumer, as a buyer now, when you sit down and you interview these agents that are going to possibly represent you on this purchase, you're going to have to come down with a set of questions to determine if this is the right fit for you. Sort of like when you list a property. When you list a property, you're going to interview 3, 4, 5 agents before you commit, right? So it's going to be that same process where you're going to have to really dive into understanding what that agent is going to do for you because there is that slight chance that you might have to compensate them. So this is a typical form that if you have bought a property before, you have seen it, which is the real estate agency relationship. Now, this form, normally what it does is it kind of just tells you, hey, I am working with a broker. Now, this is not a buyer representation form, and this is already being confused, and a lot of agents are having their buyers fill it out and said, hey, look, I got this signed. I'm good to go. No, it's not. So as a consumer, if you're only getting this form and they're telling you, hey, this is all you need, you'll be fine, you're out of compliance, and chances are that you might be liable for paying your agent's compensation. So very important. It is a form that's required because it does state that you are working with a brokerage. However, this is the form that really puts the cherry on top, and that's the buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. Anytime that you are going to go look for a property now, this form has to be filled out. In fact, it's stating the time frame in which you will be working with this agent. So if we look at section A1, it says representation period, beginning X amount of date, ending at 11:59 p.m. on this date, right? So what we're doing now is we're stating that, hey, we're going to start working with Ray August 14th, and we'll be ending September this time. So I have basically until September to show you all the properties, hopefully meet your needs, write offers, show you what I need to get done in order for me to execute on this. Now, important factors on this is going to be on E1 4B, where it states amount of compensation. All right, now this is very important. And please excuse my kids in the background. I got twins and clearly it's nap time. So amount of compensation. So this right here, guys, this is where, out of this whole presentation, this section right here, actually there's two sections that you want to make sure you address. But this right here is going to be the most important thing. Because let's say you're interviewing a buyer's agent and he says, hey, Adriana, I charge 4% for my services. And again, commissions are negotiable, right? But I charge 4%. But don't worry, Adriana, we'll get it back from the seller somehow. You just sign this. So I put in here 4%. And I'm going to get 4% off of the purchase price, right? And then we go to this side, which you can see right here. It says broker compensation advisory, which this needs to be attached. So very important. But then when we get to the RPA, which is the residential purchase agreement, and you see this little section here called 18, G318. It says seller agrees to pay the obligation of buyer's compensation, buyer's broker under separate card form SPBB. So if I put in there that I'm charging you 4%, right? 4%, but I failed to check this part of the RPA and we successfully close on your property, you will get an invoice from escrow stating that this fee of 4% needs to be paid. And technically what this is saying here on G318, seller agrees to pay the obligation of buyer compensation. What I'm stating is that, hey, I'm charging 4%. However, I want the seller to pay this. And what happens now is that the seller now can respond back or counter that fee and say, hey, we're only paying 2% or we're willing to pay 2.5%. So technically, things have not changed as much as the way sellers would pay the buyer's agent. They just want to see now that there is an agreement between the buyer representation, that there is a fee established, and that they're willing to pay anything up to that amount. So if the seller was paying 4.5, and this is just throwing it out there, 4.5, and you put 4% on the form, and that's all you're paying your agent's only going to get 4%. If you say, hey, you know what, JP, I like the way you work. I understand that there's a good chance that maybe the seller may not pay this commission, so I'm only going to pay 1.5%. Then guess what? That buyer's agent is stuck at that 1.5%. And when we go back and present it and we check here and tell the seller, hey, seller, we're willing to pay 1.5%. This is what we're going to take. He has the option to either decline that and then you would be stuck with it or pay it. So very important on these changes. And these three forms are going to be critical when it comes to making offerings. And this is all starting August 17th. So interview your agent. Value add is going to be very important now. So when you're asking this question, you want to find out, hey, exactly what are you bringing to the table? Is this going to be just you sending me properties through the MLS and then having me drive by it? Are you providing me a blueprint to the buying process, the right resources and vendors that I need to ensure that this is a smooth transaction? Guidance through the process. Are you going to step-by-step guide me, take the time and really show me? Because again, there's that possibility that this might come out of your pocket. So you want to make sure that's in there and that they're not just, sending you properties and not breaking down scenarios, that they're problem solving for you, and strong negotiating skills. This is where really buyers agents are going to put to the test, because we are now going to find out where that negotiation power is at and if they're truly fighting for you, or as we called it in the industry, they're just transactional agents, which there's many out there who all they care about is getting a transaction in so they can get a shiny trophy. So they're going to do whatever they can just to get paid and then just drop you and leave you, which is one of the reasons why we have this lawsuit. So Any questions so far on all this? We could do video or you could type it up. Any questions regarding what we just covered so far? I was just talking about this, that we had 35 people register and we have 3. And most likely they're going to ask if this was recorded, because I'm going to get emails and everybody's going to say, hey, send me the recording. It's 2024, guys. Everything's being recorded, and most likely you're going to get a copy of it. But if they ask you if you were here, say, man, it's 2024. What do you think? So, guys, any questions regarding what I just covered? Any hands? Anything? No questions. Did you not like it at all? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think these changes are going to help you, not help you? No, nothing. That's it.
It is what it is. We just gotta adapt.
There we go. Ray, I like that. No, you're right. Absolutely right. It is what it is. And I think that a lot of agents are making it worse than what it is. I heard some crazy stories. I've heard, people talk about, 1% only. I have heard stuff of, it's not going to be the same. And it's crazy. You're also going to start seeing the misinformation, the steering. And this is something that, again, I'm kind of happy this happened, because we do need to trim the fat and get rid of bad agents. I saw this post recently on a thread that I'm at on a Facebook group, where they stated, if you are a buyer, you need to buy as soon as possible before August 17th, because if not, you're going to be stuck paying a 6% commission to everyone. That's 100% not true. There's another statement that said this new lawsuit settlement is going to cost investors to pay more money when it comes to selling a property. That's also not true. They're steering of that, hey, if you don't start buying by this time, your rate is going to increase. Therefore, there's an extra penalty that you will now have to pay to agents. Like, come on, guys. So these are the issues that happens when we have misinformation being put out. And what happens is that we steer buyers into making bad decisions, scared decisions, and therefore our industry takes the hit, and then we end up paying the price. So a part of me, guys, and I've been this, again, 20 years, I've seen the short sale market, the foreclosure market, the REO market, the subprime market, everything. And all these laws always come into place because something bad happened before that. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's definitely going to trim the fat for a lot of agents. For consumers, it's going to provide more transparency. It's going to be able to provide a more sense of value-driven transactions versus commission-driven transactions. And I think it's important, because I'm all for relationships before commissions. And I also think that in the end of the day, it's really going to just clean up this industry. So yeah, if there's any further questions, guys, my email is there. Send me an email, send me a DM. I appreciate for everybody that jumped on. I hope this information was helpful. And again, man, appreciate you guys. If you want a copy of these recordings, you can have it just for your records or anything. Just shoot me an email or send me a DM, and I'll get that going, guys. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys, and have a great rest of your day.